good thing submitting to the man behind the mask in the same way you saw him, he saw you. I wanted to put away because your mind isn't right, your mind isn't right. One of the same, you play the game, but you lose because you thought you had to answer the question. You can change the past, but you can't change the future. You can change the past, but you cannot change the future.
One and the same, now play the game. Who do you know? Who do you trust?
Best not to trust anyone, huh? I wouldn't trust anyone. No one.
Change the past, but you cannot change the future. You can change the past, but cannot change the future.
One and the same, now play the game. Who do you know? Who do you trust? One and the same, now play the game. Who do you know? Who do you trust?
Nobody's coming for you. You're not going to be rescued. You're going to be here, so you might as well just get used to it and stick it out and understand.
They tell you bad news, they're so impressed.
About in the stars. They decipher it in the way you thought about in the stars. They decipher it in the way you thought about in the stars.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Porthole to Justice, the window to the truth. It is Lunch with Lotus, Ms. Lotus Justice, June 23rd, 2018. Let's get Lotus on the phone. Got so much to talk to her about. Let's see. Okay. That's Zeph Daniels' original music. You can find it on Spreaker.com under Zeph Daniel Music or Anti-NWO Tunes on Facebook exclusively. What? You're busy? You're kidding me. It's Lunch with Lotus. Alright, I told her to call me back. So, something really weird happened to me last night. Oh wait, it's Lotus. Hey! Welcome to the show. We're live.
Well, hello.
Lotus.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. I totally have to tell you something.
Okay.
I had something so weird happen to me.
Okay.
You know, I did my my live music show last night. But before I cooked dinner for me and Aiden, right? And this whole thing with Robin, like I totally love vibing with her and just kind of going along with it. It's so but anyways, okay, I'm getting on a different track. Okay. So last night I'm cooking ground beef, like lettuce tacos with water chestnuts and onions. It sounds really good. It
sounds good about the beef. Sounds really great, except for the beef. But anyway, go ahead.
It's grass-fed organic beef, right? And I have to cook. I'm not that into meat, really, but I try every once in a while because the pediatrician wants me. So I like cooking it, and I'm like getting all these like negative vibes, and I'm like, gosh, do I really want to eat this? And I ate it. We ate dinner, and then Mesh came by and picked up Aiden to go to his house while I did the show.
Right.
And I'm feeling like I start bawling my eyes out, like literally crying during the show. And I don't even know why I'm sad, right? 20 minutes into the show, I got sick. My whole dinner.
I'm not surprised by that. I mean, you're eating the energy of an animal that was murdered. So I don't do meat. I don't do meat. I wouldn't eat a cow any more than I would eat a child or a human.
I don't think
it's a sentient being.
I seriously don't think I can vibe more with meat.
Yeah, that makes me hurl. On a moral standpoint, whenever I was a meat eater, which I was, I grew up in the Midwest.
I literally don't think my body can handle the energy anymore. Like, literally.
Right. I mean, think about the fact that, they're talking about we're all ascending. This isn't just, the humans ascending. I mean, cows are sentient. If you've ever met a cow, you know that they're sentient beings. They have feelings. They have wants, desires, and needs. They are God's creatures. I do not do meat because I will not partake in something. And people say, well, you eat plants, they have souls. That's potentiality. Gaia, isn't it? Mother Earth, plants incarnate the vibe, the energy of Mother Earth. They convey the energy of the mother. But I don't have issues with that because we're born herbivores. We're not born carnivores. We don't have carnivore bodies. We don't have the organs that carnivores have. We have herbivore bodies. We're not supposed to be eating beef. We're not supposed to be eating the blood of other animals. We're not supposed to be doing that. Only in times of starvation would I do that. I mean, and then I'd be going and killing it by my hand. But the construct of beef today and meat today, you never know. I'm not bad mouthing meat farmers, but I've seen the types of people that murder cattle for beef, and there's lots of horror movies about those types of people because it takes a certain kind of psychopath to kill an animal like that on a daily basis. And I've especially am disgusted by kosher. Kosher is really disgusting.
Well, that's the thing. For years I'm organic and I try to eat grass-fed.
Right.
I like to cook the
best. It doesn't matter. It still doesn't matter. It's still killing a sentient being.
Yeah. I really had a profound experience last night. I mean, it was different.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, and there's the movies about, there's movies like pertaining to energy being conveyed through food too, like in the movie with Juliette Binoche, like Water for Chocolate, with
Johnny Depp. That was a great movie,
right? Where she's making chocolate, and the energy that she puts, the fun, the frivolity, the love, she puts into the chocolate. Okay, so the same thing goes with it. There's a conveyance of energy in all that you consume, and so, like the Bible says, you can't always control what goes in, but you control what comes out. Well, I control as much of what goes into my body as I can. I can't help that I'm being chemtrailed to death. That I can't help that they hid diseases in the immunizations that have given me vitamin deficiencies, these are proven facts that have given my parents' generation cancer. All the cancer that is pervasive in this culture right now was caused by the polio vaccination. It was a contrived conspiracy to give the medical industrial complex a bunch of people that they could treat and make billions of dollars on and make us sick. These are all contrived diseases that were given to us through immunizations. I couldn't help that. My parents didn't know that.
I'm I do Julian's protocol.
Right.
once a month. I don't do it.
Don't do that because you have no idea. Right?
I do it over a weekend once a month. I don't do it as like religiously as some people. Some people do it like every day, but.
Yeah. No, that would back me up doing that every day. But because it resets your,
I've been taking this stuff called Chlorella, which it slowly removes heavy metals from the body. Like,
right.
I've been doing this thing with Robin, and it's like, wow, it's like next level.
There are some things, but I can't control everything that I'm forced to ingest because of my environment. But I certainly am not going to participate in cruelty to animals. To me, slaughterhouses are cruel. The way that they're harvested and mass produced. When I was a kid, we bought our cattle from our local family farmer, who was most likely my second cousin. And I know that those animals were treated well. They were also butchered before 3 years, which would prevent from having some of the brain disorders that come with eating old cattle, the brain-eating bacteria and stuff like that. So I just don't eat meat. Yeah. Mad cow is when people get mad cow, that means that they ate raw meat from a cow that was more than 3 years old. You're not supposed to be eating, downer cows, which is what most people, people don't understand that downer cows are people they're cows that are so old they fall dead in the field and they still go butcher them. People have no idea the disgusting activities of some aspects of the mass production of meat. So Americans have come, anyone, not just Americans, but the industrialized world, if you are not able to butcher a cow yourself, you shouldn't be eating it. That's what I'm going to tell you. I could butcher a cow myself if I had to. I would kill an animal. I've done that. I've gone, I go fishing. I would hunt a deer. If I was starving, I would do that. I'm not going to distance myself from the butchering of animals and go pick it up in a styrofoam container and think it's this neutral thing. That little ribeye sitting on that little styrofoam plate you got from the butcher has a lot of evil incarnated into it and how it got to you. And you don't know who did that. You don't know how it was done. You don't know what was put in it. And I do not trust the industry because I don't trust the regulations of the industry. I don't trust.
I'm very particular. Like if I eat out, like
Absolutely. My mom is so allergic to food she can't eat out. We can only eat in so many places. And here's the worst part. This is what people don't understand. People are disgusted by meat, but cheese is just as bad. I only eat vegan cheese because people don't understand that all cheese is made, most cheese, 99% of cheese is made by taking rennet from animals' gut. So there are cows that are put in little just for people to have this cheese all over the world. There are cows that are put in stalls and have permanent funnels placed in their stomachs where they ladle out stomach acid so that you can grow your cheese.
Oh, God.
That's disgusting. It's disgusting. They literally have permanent stainless steel funnels, openings, put in the sides of their bellies. Now, I don't know about you, but if I saw any animal in the world treated like that, that's disgusting and reprobate. We're not supposed to be doing that to our animals. That's disgusting. That is just evil.
Oh, God.
Okay? There's no need for animals to be treated like that for us to feed us. And in fact, cattle farming is proven to be bad for the environment. It's proven that you can make more food by agricultural use of cow land. And cattle aren't even native to this country. The type of animals that we're eating aren't even native to this country.
I'm so lucky you're my best friend because seriously, nobody could like say this stuff and it'd be like
it's disgusting. It's like, people, do you realize what you're promoting?
It's awful. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, it's like, because people, people just run around and go, oh, the world's this. They don't think about, I love this young generation. Oh, guns are bad. Guess what? Your cell phone that you use every day that you can't seem to separate your fingers and your face from, little children in third world countries were put into slavery, and the raw materials of those countries stolen by the military industrial complex for you to have that little phone you love that you use for all your rebellious anti-American rhetoric. There's certain payoffs here that people don't want to look at. And I'm a realist. I know the origins of everything I do from beginning to end. And I will not participate nor support because that is free will capitalism. As a capitalist country, you are bound by the law to not support things that are bad.
So, lunch with Lotus. Okay, we're off of my subject now. That was I lived through it, and I'm probably never going to be able to vibe with meat ever again, especially after this show.
You shouldn't buy rennet-based cheese either. You shouldn't buy rennet-based cheese. That's
going to be a hard one, but I already only like to eat really good cheese, like.
Well, really good cheese, it'll say vegetarian enzymes. There's a couple. I'll send you a list of the people we go.
But
Sam's
I still love
vegetarian.
Buffalo mozzarella cheese. Like I just.
They have blue cheese that is vegetarian rennet. They make it, but the fact is, I mean, and pigs are worst of all. I mean, pigs are the worst beef. I mean, you have to understand.
I cannot go any deeper down this rabbit hole.
No, bacon's the worst of all. You know that lovely smell.
Period. I never have. So
nothing like sugar cured rancid pork to make your mouth water.
Okay, this rabbit hole has a do not enter sign now. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about and speak to is, I posted this image, or I posted this clip of a Catholic priest. Basically, it looked to me like he was trying to break this baby's neck.
Actually, yeah, he choked it. It was like he slapped it. I'm like, no, he grabbed the baby by his throat and looked like he was trying to rip his head off. Yes. And that's, I love that. And did you see when the father...
It was quite literal because, you and I speak to this on Lunch with Lotus practically every week, But it was a strong... it was such an impactful clip. I had to post it.
Right, exactly, because no one can argue. I mean, I'm telling you, the only reason he was allowed to go to the lengths he was is because everyone looking at it's going, that's a priest doing that. And so they did a second take. This is what I'm trying to tell people. These uniforms you have allowed to behave in these unlawful fashions just specifically because of the uniforms they wear, you need to stop it because they're the worst of all. They've been wrapping themselves in these uniforms, these masks. Remember, don't be trapped in the flesh. That's the first warning. Do not base your judgment on the flesh you see before you. Judge them by their deeds. That priest was clearly misbehaving long before he slapped that baby.
Yeah.
Long before he slapped that baby. He was misbehaving the minute he put both of his hands on that baby's head, and he was grabbing him strictly just by his head. Just that act could have snapped that baby's neck. Babies have very tender spinal processes. Just him doing that to that baby could have damaged that baby. That's why choking is a felony, even in an adult. It's an automatic felony in most states to choke somebody. Because just putting your hand to a person's neck and that top of that spine like that is a dangerous thing and can harm someone permanently for life. That priest misbehaved.
The clip itself, thank God the baby was okay and the parents.
Absolutely, and did you see how
the parents were there to intervene? Yeah, the father knew. He
didn't go to the baby. He carefully, slowly put his hand and made sure that when he took that baby, that the baby's neck was protected. He ripped that baby from that priest's hands very cautiously. And even then, he knew to take that baby away. That father knew that man was doing wrong. And he was very careful because he looked like he was being not acting, but he had actually wrapped his hand between the baby and the priest and then put his hand on the baby's head and took him with both hands. That father knew.
Yeah,
that father knew that he was in danger, and he had to be careful even in taking that baby. Because the way that priest was handling that child, he could have snapped that baby's neck in a second. And that was creepy. And that's where we are at in the world, folks.
Lotus, you and I, we talk about these false Elohims, every week, Lunch with Lotus. And I think it really drove it home what we've been speaking to. That clip, it just, if people can't wrap their heads around what we're saying, I think seeing that clip, they do now.
Well, but see, that's the point. Is why I keep warning people. Okay, and let me speak to something else that's very important right now, because I've had two people call me that I've spoken to I understand the intimate details of their children being stolen. And in both situations I speak to, a key element is becoming very evident. In one case, a woman's mother helped her granddaughter sell her baby. So it's people within the family. So she has a mother, and I said, "Well, is your mother always?" She says, "Yes, my mother's always been kind of evil my whole life." And she said, her mother helped her mentally disabled granddaughter. So the grandmother helped the granddaughter sell her great grandbaby to another couple in another state. Sell the baby. Her mother facilitated the sale of her great grandbaby. And in another circumstance, and this is very painful, and this is a hard thing for her to deal with. And in another situation I just spoke to earlier, a mother is assisting. It's a stepmother. I mean, it's like people within the immediate family. Oh, it's a sister who works for CPS, a half sister who's selling out her sisters and has delivered 5 of her own nieces into state custody and nephews. There are people within the families sending their children into slavery. Just like in fascist...
I spoke about this on the Zeph report, how everything is infiltrated. Everything, even your family is infiltrated. There are people that are groomed specifically for this, and they use these instruments of state to affect war within the family unit. Yeah, I spoke about this on the Zeph report too. Even our schools, Lotus, if you're not going along with the sex, the new sex, that the programs that they're having in the school, you're getting bullied. You're getting targeted.
Well, okay. The reason why I bring this up is because I tell people, and people were so surprised at this, that when I went down to speak on the anniversary of the Honorable Nancy Schaefer's death, and I don't use that word honorable very often, and you know that. So I consider Nancy Schaefer to be an honorable senator. She is a prime example of how the woman writes the law, even though the instrument she was in is de facto and nearly illegitimate at this point with our Congress. We are in de facto government, folks. We are on suspension of law, meaning there are people in our government that by the law are not supposed to be there. That's what that means, by the law. And this was a woman that was in a de facto instrument, but by the way she walked the law and knew what was right and wrong, she made it de jure. Okay, and that's the point. She was a de jure person in a de facto illegitimate seat. And she brought fraud to bear and said, they're doing this to our kids. So she's honorable. She's an honorable woman. I don't care what they say. So I was going down to speak on this, and I go down and I talk to people organizing it. And I say, how many people are going to be here tomorrow? Because I understand about co-optation, agent provocateurs. Remember, I organized occupations. I understand provocateurs. I understand the backstories of politics and how you subterfuge and undermine through coup and obfuscation and putting agents into these political parties and that play. I know that. I saw it.
They've weaponized witchcraft, and they're openly warring in the groups that we have in our network.
So I said, here's why I'm telling you that. I said, even right now, I said, in this room, look to your left, look to your right. I said, one of the people on either side of you is either a tool or a shill. They're a tool by their ignorance of what's going on, and so I can easily manipulate them through propaganda, or they're an active participant to undermine you and co-opt your agency right now. I said, that's why I don't do groupthink anymore. That's why I know the militias are co-opted. Militias are co-opted. They had a call. They argued within them. We gave them an opportunity to do something different. I was invited onto a really big-time military talk show as soon as he realized what I was walking and how it would undermine his father's judgeship union. We haven't materialized an interview because the militias are co-opted. This is how you know, because if the law is organic, righteous people come together when they're supposed to. Unless there's someone in them that's there to make sure that doesn't happen. By perverting the truth. That's what happens here, folks. These people use the art of silent war. They have infiltrated our government. They, by design, have been allowed to infiltrate our government. This is by design because our government, this is important. Our law is an organic, divine process that righteous men will make happen. Period. It's not a question. It shall happen. It is but what path it comes to be done. We have done it through war. We have done it through warring within tribal systems. We've done it through warring within states. We've done it through warring within states and rebellions. We've done it through warring with 2 times every nation known to man in 2 wars. Now we're trying to do it through commerce. Because
No. You know, people are trying to say, oh, well, you're not going to be taken seriously if you talk about spirit cooking, smart dust, and biologicals being sprayed on us and foreign bodies of programmable flesh. If you talk about that stuff, all of that biological warfare that they're conducting on us, weaponized witchcraft, you're not going to be taken seriously anymore.
Can we talk about that word, programmable flesh? Because let's talk about the spiritualism and the philosophical foundations, eschatology. You know, the whole it is about programmable flesh. Because this is important when people think that's just science fiction. That's this, that's that. That's creepiness. Well, the Bible speaks to programmable flesh in that when St. John, in the first epistle for John, speaks of the only time you will see the definition of sin in any book, in any law book that I'm aware of. The definition of sin is lawlessness among men who have allowed evil to come through them. That is disclosed to us in the Gospel of John. I'm sorry, the first epistle of John, when he's been set up and telling people about what is evil, how it affects us. That is a preaching of. He's saying to you, evil only comes into this realm by men who are not righteousness, allowing it to happen, and then coming together in groups to allow it to become a lawlessness. And thus, the sin is when men act in concert in lawlessness. Okay? That's sin by our law, which is what our government is doing now, because the instruments of government are being inundated with the basic malfeasance of humanity. But guess what? Most people who are corrupt seek positions of power and control over other people. So being in the states of men, in instruments of state, is a desire and a propensity of most sociopaths and psychopaths and stuff like that. And if you have a truly divine instrument, you account for such extreme circumstances, but of the basic malfeasance of humanity. So the goal is to create a society and a system of government and rules of commerce, which will account for the fact that there are malfeasance in men and that all power corrupts absolutely. And there eventually will come a time when even the most republic and honorable divine state of men will create an instrument that's so divine that the only problem is that there are still reprobates in it that have not been cleansed from it, because the people who create the law have not told them they can't be there anymore. And that's what we're doing now. I am telling them, by telling our government and proving to them, by writing about my son, how they have violated their own laws. And they have allowed themselves to violate their own laws to the point where it has become a criminal enterprise. And we have allowed an instrument, a coup of foreign agents to come into our government and to create a criminal syndicate that reaches all the way down into the county seats where they are.
And it's galactic. This is galactic divine law, that free will that they're breaking, that are galactic laws.
Doing this, and you know, when people can't freely commit criminality anymore, when you tell under the law is a crime. Okay, so you don't like what you're doing with cops. Instead of saying stop when you see a cop beating someone or getting ready to shoot someone, say what you are doing is against the law. Say it that. Don't say stop, do it. Stop beating them. Say what you're doing is against the law. I say what you're doing is against the law. Stop what you're doing against the law. And if you get 2 people standing right there at that time to say in their agreement what you're doing to that man, policeman, is against the law, guess what? That's by witness of 2 that you have said that cop is committing a crime against the man he's beating. Put that on a video. They can't undermine that in their secret little grand juries. He won't get off. Because by biblical perspective, by witness of 2, you have defined him a reprobate. See the beauty of the internet? But if you don't know the law, you don't know how to invoke the law, all the people have to do is say, we consider this lawlessness. And the government's supposed to respond in proper fashion and law with federal grand juries and county grand juries. Real wins, not these fake ones. Real wins. Because the crimes...
Why haven't they formed any grand juries yet?
Because the bar had not been cured to the Treasury, which is what I did with my son's case. I've told the Treasury there is prima facie crime and non-suit in the nature of proviso. That means, in translation, you all put my son in a contract, you put his footprint on this thing, and now you're allowing corrupt states of men to traffic him as a thing with it. And he's been harmed against the law and in a repugnant, disgusting fashion against the law, like openly, disgustingly kidnapping by your little bar union boys. And if you're not going to defend him, I will default you. And the United States will not have a treasury anymore. Because they have made our children commodities, and by the law, they will impose the federal statutes of the common law upon the states, all the way down to the counties, if they intend to use them anymore as negotiable instruments. You're not going to satisfy or honor any more frauds against statutes from anybody anymore. And if there are statutes that are repugnant, they will be removed willfully. The bar's been... Our children are not going to be commoditized and be deprived due process. Because, see, that's what they've taken it to. They made our children commodities by the Federal Reserve Act. And then the bar union, in their malfeasance, manipulated the statutes, which are... These are suppositions. These are arguments. These are not law. These are arguments yet to be proven to be bound to the law, cured to the law, the high law. They have changed statutes to where that which...
Uh-oh. We cut out. Let's see if she calls back.
Sorry.
You
Sorry.
cut out. So Lotus, I created... Okay, go ahead.
Because what they're using to run their government, they're running the government off the value of our trusts. Our trusts are literally, in this world, our flesh. That's what we've been given, God in trust. And God we trust with our flesh.
Lotus, I created this post, and I don't know if you read it, but you know how they passed Trump signed an executive order. Yeah. And I created this post, and it says 24 million kids separated from family by the family court system, and nobody bats an eye. 2,000 illegal alien kids separated at the border, and everybody loses their minds. And I posted, set aside your politics for just a moment. So suspend your politics, whatever they may be. And look at the bigger picture. Most of the children being separated at the border because they're being separated from human traffickers, not from families. Not only that, they're bringing up the children at this time now because of what's around the corner, election time. And the mainstream media never reports on the children. They never do because they're complicit. And so they're using this particular bill has many purposes. They're using it to deepen the divide, okay? Because there still is children here on American soil that are being trafficked by child protective services and these fraudulent instruments of the courts. Not only that, they want to disarm us. They want to disarm us and remove our borders so there can be war on American soil to destabilize our country. They want to legalize human trafficking. They want global slavery. The globalists are Satanists. 24 million American displaced children and 2,000 undocumented immigrants. If you are convincing yourself that these are isolated incidences at our border, you're very naive. Because this is a worldwide issue with CPS. There is a branch of CPS on every single military base we have globally.
Right. Okay. And that's fine. Because then the military's already set up for when we federalize the whole system. Because that's what's going to happen. That's what we're moving. That's what we're working for. That's what I've spoken to my people about just today. So if we had we've been trying to tell, I have through the courts, I already proved to the Treasury, by witness of two on prima facie instruments produced by the very circuit courts themselves, that the circuit courts, the 6th and 7th circuit courts of this United States judiciary has by law prima facie violated the statutes as obstructions to justice in a prima facie kidnapping of my son by county officers in Highland County, Ohio. Okay? And they have dismissed habeases of a child that was clearly kidnapped by Rucker Feldman. So you know what that means. Translating means we can kidnap your kids and we're going to grant immunity to the states. That's what it means, isn't it, Amelia? That's exactly what it means.
So I have, these politically correct people that are legislating these laws are to legalize human trafficking is not something to celebrate. It's not something to celebrate. It's not Cinco de Mayo.
But here's the deal. All those types of banking philosophies have been allowed to fluctuate within the arguments being held within the bar unions in the statutes of the attorneys. And now that's been allowed to ruminate long enough, and now the good attorneys and the bad attorneys get to pick sides, because I brought the hammer, I brought the sword of Solomon as to where the bar shall lie on what we shall pay for anymore in their banking argument with our children as commodities. Because that whole world is running on the commodities of our children, and that's good, because our children are the world. They are our inheritance. We're just looking at it from the satanic view like we're used to. But when you look at it from the biblical view, we've just brought the third temple. So this is a divine construct, folks. The law has been delivered, and now here's what I'm going to tell everybody. From what I understand, and by the way that it seems to be working, the Treasury's been noticed, and I told them you're going to investigate these as crimes. These are Treasury crimes. Any child who has been unlawfully seized by CPS agents in this nation, all over this nation, and even if it's from the border, I don't care, report kid stolen through CPS means, through county seats, under Title IV with CPS, everyone whose child is missing needs to report it missing to the FBI.
What the argument I'm bringing to the table and what I'm working on is arguing that we need the same for all American children.
The law is the same. That's the point. They're treating all children in the world are commodities under the banking. They are not doing anything different to the people at the border than they have been through the states. I know this. I've proved it. I've shown them this prima facie by their instrument. They didn't even see the path of the corruption. They let it grow, and I looked at it from the outside and said, "Oh my gosh, that's baby trafficking." Okay, because I'm not in that, and I know the law, and I saw, because a little bit over here is a little bit over here, a statute placed here in the federal evidence rules, suspended discovery in the counties. They can just take your kid and never even have to bring facts, and then they impart these obstructions to justice that are horrible, all the way up to where a person has to go to the Supreme Court of the United States, and they convey automatic immunity for any state action, even if it's prima facie kidnapping, all the way to the Supreme Court. What poor person can do that? Oh, and you have to use an attorney to do it, by the way. They've made it so, no, we're only going to take this argument from an attorney. We're only going to take an argument from someone of our union that we're a criminal enterprise. Well, guess what? You don't get to have that argument. You get to be judged because you're our trustees. They're our trustees, and our trustees have proven themselves to have allowed a criminal conspiracy of international proportions, of criminal syndicate activity that spans the globe, of baby trafficking. Open baby trafficking. It's not just babies from Mexico to the United States. They are taking babies all over the world, from all over the world, and moving them around to their own demises. They're doing it everywhere, folks.
Every time they displace a child, they get more money.
And there's no federal jurisdiction.
Some of these kids have up to 100 foster care placements throughout their lifetime.
And every one of those foster care people got paid. Every one of them. It's like baby training. You know, they call it diesel prison. Wait, they call it it's when they basically, instead of putting you in federal pen, they call it diesel. What do they call it? diesel justice. They like basically will ship you from one prison to another, and you'll be in 15 prisons in 1 year. And you basically get molested every time you walk in there. They snip your, all the way in every orifice you got. So you basically just get sexually harassed 15 times in a year, and then trucked in really uncomfortable being like in cages on rough plains. I mean, just like stuff like that. That's what they do to people. Like the prison system is just a really prettily veiled gulag when it comes to people who are actually fighting corruption. People who are fighting the despotism of the federal government as a criminal instrument are getting treated the same way that criminals are actually getting treated.
70% of our prison population are former foster children.
Well, they're not only former foster children. Most of them are there through no violent acts of crimes towards other people. And so they're basically creating drug addicts and dependents and then criminalizing. So they actually break the family up. This is the racketeering, folks. So they break the family up so they can take these children and depreciate them in their self-worth so that they can become tools and mules that they can feed into their system of Moloch, which is a degraded mentality, creates a drug addiction of self-immolation, of self-hatred. And they're too righteous because these kids are good kids. They've been denied since their inception, their innocence is childhood, and they've been harmed since children. So they still have a very childlike mindset in their perceptions of the crimes being committed against them. And they emulate a slow desire to die because they feel worthless. They don't even see themselves as victims. They've been so put upon. They are truly created. The state has come to the point where they've regurgitated this statutory construct. So now we fed the baby back into the machine. That's actually good in a law sense if you take the reprobates out, because it creates a posterity. If you take the same law that feeds the right of the child back into himself, which is where he is, as the executor of the instrument of his corporeal self, he is the nation of one, which is what our instruments are. We are all countries and nations of one, and we wear the crown of the man, the sovereign, the one, so we've done this. If the criminal reprobates would believe it, there'd be no problem. And we don't need to even create or fix immigration. It's not an immigration issue. It's a right to jubilee issue. It's a right. These children, I personally would ask the Mexican government if they want to apply for statehood. I don't see a problem with that. I've suggested that for years. Technically speaking, if anyone under the Federal Reserve Act has the right to apply for statehood because they're under our banking. In my mind, they really are republic states because they're using our instruments. But, they want to do it that way. There's a lot of solutions. Yeah, but you had a president you have people who have undermined the peace of the
politicking. They're politicking and legislating these laws. They're doing it through political correctness or what have you, and they're playing on people's emotions when really what they're doing is forcing in their laws to basically make human trafficking and slavery legal in our justice system.
Right, but what I'm saying to you is that our system of law is about slaving yourself, but you slave yourself to yourself. It's like you borrow against your own 401k. You're not slaving yourself to a corrupt state of men. The state of men just run the machine that creates the banking instrument that you go buy stuff from China over the internet with. They're not supposed to be your daddy. They're not your judge. Your people are your judge. You have corrupt bankers defining your constructs of personam, whether you get to be identified as this or that, and this manipulation and the propaganda to make everyone feel that they're the same. Okay, I had to listen to, I'm going to point this out. This is really important. This is advertising, and it's subliminal. I don't even watch TV, but I've been watching a lot of CSI leftovers, right? And there's a commercial for CNSU, and he goes, how many of you are this, and how many of you are that? And he goes, everyone is given, he's saying that not everyone is given opportunity, but everyone is given a craft, like a gift, the equity in what you're able to do. And I'm like, that's exactly the opposite. Not everyone is born in equity physically in the flesh. Okay? Some of us are born disabled. Some of us will never be that supreme football player. So we are not born in equity in our flesh. But by our spirit incarnation, we are owed equity. Okay? That's the point. In our capita, we are equitable. So no, is not abound for everyone. There are lots of people in the world, the abundance of the world is opportunity. Americans have every opportunity afforded to them, and they need to learn how to wield that knowledge and responsibility and stop being reckless in their political ideologies instead of following the law of divinity, that children are off the table when it comes to governments using them as tools of commerce and then denying them even due process. The fact of the matter is every child that is taken away from his mother and father is being denied due process of law because he is being put by all.
Well, I think when something traumatic as that happens to a child, don't you think that an actual crime should be committed?
It's a treasury crime. That's the point. 197. Listen, okay. Our treasury is the foundation of the Federal Reserve note. Okay. The Federal Reserve note is the instrument.
What I'm saying, Lotus, we have children being taken away and put in foster placements because their parents kept them home from school one too many times because the child was vomiting or had a high fever. Especially young kids, they get sick very often when they start kindergarten.
We talked about that. The solution to that is here's the deal. When there are issues with a child, the first thing that should be done is that if it's a federal instrument that needs access, a federal agent should go in and make sure that family is not owed some benefit, that there is such a dynamic within
this conspiracy is so deep and so... Okay, go ahead.
Let me finish.
This conspiracy is so deep, Lotus, that they intentionally create diapers, chemical diapers, that give our babies severe diaper rash. And CPS will use that as a grounds to remove children.
Okay, I understand that. I'm trying to explain to you that that's an absurdity and that an instrument of the federal government needs to be in between those two clear, insane constructs completely founded on trafficking children as kidnappers for pedophiles, and that the instrument is not the problem, because the reason why those children are so valuable is because they literally are a bonded commodity. They don't just have a value when you sell the baby. They have a value in the treasury. So, back to what I'm trying to explain to you. The Federal Reserve Act, it created a bond between the Federal Reserve and our treasury. Okay? And there's a bond, there's a corporate treasury on top of the real republic treasury. There's two different treasuries, folks. So I just told that treasury, the banking treasury that's bonded to the Federal Reserve instrument, which 197 nations use for international petrodollars. So it's been used by everybody. All those bond instruments have frauds in them. Okay? If this isn't cured. Because it affects, if they are using that dollar in your country, I promise you, they've been trafficking babies out of that country in the same banking instrument. See, they hide the trafficking of babies under the negotiable instruments as bonds, folks. That they're doing babies all over the place, and you don't even know that they're babies because they're just bond numbers. They're everywhere. They're doing it everywhere. We're doing it in 197 nations, and then some that aren't. They're doing it everywhere. It's not just Mexico. It's hidden here. If they're hiding it so well in our government that we didn't even know about it till recently, how well do you think they do it in open? Oh, wait, let's say we just told you they have CPS centers in every place we have a base. Let's create orphans. Call it war.
This is what they do. What they'll do is they'll target a region, and they'll target the economy. They'll create a poor class, and then they'll go through what they call like harvesting time, and they'll stage a false flag or what have you. And then the parents are so vulnerable and displaced at themselves at the time, they'll willingly give up their children thinking it's temporary, and they'll get their children back, and their children will be safe while they reorganize. They never see their children again, folks.
Well, to be honest with you, that's a tough one there. But here's one, as far as whether I'd give my kid up.
I'll tell you, if they accomplish, I mean, I don't even want to imagine this, because, you know, I don't agree with everything Trump is doing, but he is the only thing standing in the way right now of them coming in and totally destabilizing America.
Doing stuff where he's listening to what we're talking about. Everything that the group that I'm talking to, that everything that we've asked them to do, they've done. And the fact we asked them for an executive order, okay. Mm-hmm. If they couldn't if we asked if he couldn't get cooperation, that he needed to get an executive order to take those children into federal custody. You know why we asked for that? Because I know they're trafficking in the same law that they're trafficking our children in the States. The same manner, it's the same unions. They're taking those kids from Arizona to New York the same way they took the young woman, the baby that we know about, from Texas to California, where they just basically trucked them without even telling the federal government they were moving a baby. You and I both know it goes on everywhere. It's not just across the border; it's even within the United States. And now they accidentally just somehow, some of those little, quote, I'm going to use the term I'm offended by again, Mexican babies, because it's not about Mexican babies. They're just easier to track, I guess now, right? So the color's becoming an advantage for these poor, unfortunate children, because suddenly there's all these Hispanic babies showing up in foster homes in New York, right? How'd they get? Folks, let's listen. Let's question. How could a baby from a foreign country that was seized by your, quote, border patrol, which is supposed to be a federal instrument, but they're mandated to give them back to the state, aren't they, Amelia? Those children end up in the state custody, don't they, Amelia? Mm-hmm. How is a baby that's mandated, and this is the key here, by the way the federal statutes were founded under Title IV, through the Clinton administration, right, Amelia, and all the way up until now, mm-hmm. How did that state instrument take a baby that was seized through federal instruments of the border, supposedly under amnesty, where there's at least supposed to be, those children should have gotten an amnesty hearing, folks. These kids are just being trafficked in as things, as criminals, dropped into a foster system of the local state, not given federal amnesty hearings, and now showing up in New York. How did they traffic babies across state line without the feds finding out, when there's all these?
Well, because art is the only thing that is not regulated, and I guess art can be human beings too.
But that's the point. They are regulated. There are laws. If they're going to traffic a baby from one state to another, first off, there's supposed to be a hearing under the family interstate, whatever. There's an act about moving babies from one state to another. You can't just call.
They have a lot of investment in these art displays, and they're in New York, and a lot of money travels through these organizations that they.
No. If I have a 5-year-old and I want to put a 5-year-old on a plane by himself to land in another state to get picked up by his grandmother, there are certain things in paperwork I have to do. One is prove that it's my kid, And so I want to know how a child that has no birth certificate and no social security number and no number at all that really isn't trackable find its way to New York, folks. Okay, this is key, because this is where Trump is going to do what we ask of him for sure, because this is the end, and this is why we push this issue. A baby from a foreign country was seized by a port authority and then suddenly shows up in New York, now up to 70 of them just in New York alone. We don't know how many children really have ended up anywhere, because these children aren't documented. folks. Remember this. You're being shown how what we were screaming about, the need for the entire border to be patrolled because of the baby trafficking, is how they're just bringing in, they're trafficking undocumented children now, folks. We can prove they're trafficking undocumented children with no social security number and no birth certificates, not even paternity tests. We don't even know.
I'm going to note a little bit of hypocrisy here, okay? These people that, played on the emotions to get this bill passed, played on the emotions of the public to get this bill passed. These are the same political party that is in support of abortion.
Right. And also decrying Trump for the border situation, which is running completely 100% on the statutes that the Democrats created under Clinton and perpetuated under Obama. I mean, and even still the Bush helps too. I mean, it's no party here, folks. It's the party of them versus us.
It's exactly what it looks like.
And the them is the party got the machine. So here's the deal. If the government's main purpose in life is to protect the interests of our posterity, the keepers of our estates, our children, meaning that, so our children should be considered our most valued precious commodity in a republic, and they are by the law, and the trustees should be operating in the interest of those children. Well, right now they're saying you can eat of them because the instrument that brought the law that cured the crown are the very people that used to eat them. That's what our crown was meant to do, is to remove the eaters, the creators of the machine of Moloch. We're not feeding the babies into Moloch to be eaten. We're feeding babies into the machine so that that the machine runs for them. So what you do is you put the law. I'm okay with the CPS agencies being in 197 or however many we have, wherever there's military base, because that's a federal instrument of Social Security Title IV sitting right there. And that federal agency can interview and make sure every child brought in there has a fair right to federal instruments at their avail, gets an amnesty hearing, is not separated from their family, is not brought into custody with people against, that can't prove that they're, by at least blood tests. See, that's the beauty of the day and age, folks. You can prove lineage by blood DNA, it's real easy. Real easy, folks. So it's not like we can't prove who the real mothers and fathers are in these cases. But you have children being brought across the border down there. We're not even sure who the parents are. The children are being separated from whoever's bringing them to the border, and then suddenly they're showing up in New York. And these children have no birth certificates. They have no social security numbers. They are undocumented children being trafficked interstate. How is that happening, folks? That's called baby trafficking. That's an international crime. The United States, in allowing that within our states, they violated international law. I don't know if people understand that, but it's an international crime that was committed, at least by 70 people now sitting in New York right now. And this isn't Trump's fault. This is the coup, folks. What happened is they dropped a little bit, they dropped a color. They dropped the color of these little Mexican babies into the legal system, and now it's showing the color of where everything goes. It's showing people what the legal system has been doing to American babies probably for the last 50 years, if not longer, before it was even then. They've codified the child trafficking in this nation. They've made they've brought the bar to the baby. They've proven that they eat the baby. And not only do they do that, they eat the babies and then feed them back into their machine. So they bring them in as the babies that they traffic in foster care, and then they feed them into the prison industrial complex, and then they feed them into the permanent peonage and slave, where they can just molest them into tyranny and put guns in their back and shoot them if they step out of line once they're on parole, because that's what they do. Labor Code allows them to shoot you on sight if you're on parole and you violate the rebellion again, They can shoot you dead and not even have a child. The Labor Code says that. They're feeding you into that. Well, the lawgivers are changing. The lawgivers say now the job of everybody under the oath of office, under the Constitution of the United States, is to defend every life, every child. You're not there to obliterate and annihilate nations, for wealth and all this stuff. You're supposed to be there to defend.
This is a violation of universal laws as well. Enslaving children cannot contract with the state, so you're violating their free will.
Now, Trump has every proof now in what's in the public arena by the decry of the Democrats themselves. My gosh, there's babies in New York that came from Mexico. Really? Well, we had babies in Ohio. We don't know where they've gone. We have babies being trafficked from California to Texas and back. We got it all. We got having that going on here for years. No one cares as long as it's American babies. Again, we're going to show the people of the world how repugnant they are about this white privilege stuff. It has nothing to do with color, folks. But apparently you only see color, and you only care when it's a dark baby. Because when it's a white, waspy, Indo-European baby, and we're screaming it, and we say it's not about blacks or whites doing it, they're just doing it to everybody, you don't listen. But as soon as you drop a Mexican baby into the legal machine of the American bar unions and the states of America and the corporate United States coup, then suddenly it's a travesty. The Democrats only care. See, that shows you how colorblind the Democrats are, because they just got shown their own corruptions, because the people that built the machine that allowed those babies to come across that were colored under law is what I'd say, because they're not documented. They're colored under law, is undocumented. Where are they going? That means it's an X. No one even knows that baby exists, folks. Can't even prove the child's existence. Except for someone saying, oh, there's a Mexican baby. I'm pretty sure that came from here, you know. They look at traffic records now. We can track where they put them all. But how is it happening? How are people trucking babies undocumented through customs of planes and buses? How is that possible? I can't even get on a plane without showing an ID. There's a baby without an ID. Whoa! How'd they get on a plane? You understand? This is deep. This is showing the root of the coup. So, you know, it's horrible that you had to bring children of color that had no color under the law, no oath, and drop them in your own legal machine to show how corrupt you were all the way up to D.C. Because the Clintons and the Bushes and the Obamas built everything that we're looking at right now. Not Trump. Trump's getting ready to cure this, folks. He's getting ready to take these people down. Because right now, just in the record of the press, an international crime was committed 70 times for every kid in New York. 70 times. There's no way those children should be in New York. No way. No way. Not without some federal. I mean, that's crazy, folks. You have states issuing state IDs to these kids or something without birth certificate. How are they doing this? And each kid they're going to get treasury funds for every time they touch those kids. No, this is massive. This is an exposure of the massive corruption that has been allowed to ruminate because we have an instrument of state. Those children are supposed to be getting benefits. That's what I'm telling everybody. There are federal benefits that those children are owed. There are international benefits those children are owed now. When there's a problem in the family, it should be a federal instrument that comes in and sees if the mother is ill. Okay, if you are a single mother and you find yourself suddenly a single mother and you come down with an illness or postpartum depression, that shouldn't be a foundation for the state to remove your child from you. You could be too sick to go get health care. Or better still, you don't have health care, but you should get health care. There should be instruments where benefits are offered, and that whatever is wrong, that the adult in the family or the child in the family is owed some type of help from a federal assistance program. That interview should happen first, because most of the time what they're actually eating on is poverty. See, and that's what's the most disgusting part about this. They're eating the children of the most disenfranchised people of in our republic, in our state. They're eating upon the poor, and most of the time, those people are impoverished because the state
they're contriving the poverty. Because if you look at now, most of the states, Lotus, California, San Francisco, most of those states, homeless population, most of those states are states that predominantly voted Democrat. If you look at those populations, the homeless population is skyrocketing.
I agree with the promise of communism, but the way they want to create communism is really an authoritarian state-wise, where it's really elite fascism, where they say that the states say we're communists, but really they're not communists. There's like 12 people running the whole government, and they're all doing everything they tell you can't do. They're living in excess. They're doing, it's that elite fascism that they really are profiting. To be honest with you, and people, I promise you, I can prove this in law. The United States of America, and the laws that founded it, is the only true utopian communist construct ever written down. And it is evolving just as Marx said it would, where we've always been socialists. I remember as a child getting commodity foods. Why aren't children getting commodity foods anymore? Why are we? Why? Because we've allowed corporatism to get between the child and the benefit. That is the coup. And that's fine. We expanded that argument to see the best way to do it through banking, and actually sometimes it's cheaper to allow people to contract out than to do it internally. But before they allowed that big ballooning of corporate welfare that Trump is cutting all the fat off of with his restructuring, which is why he's great, because that's what that man did. He takes ballooned companies that have been declared or are going bankrupt, and he restructures them, and he sells this off and sells that off. That's what he did for a living, folks. That's how he got all his money. He's good at rooting out unuseless fat and people who are eating on your bottom line. And he's found, I promise you, he can prove already in the corporate structure how there's a whole bunch of people affecting corporate crimes. If the United States were declared the corporation that it is by the Republic law, there would be so much criminal activity by embezzlement within the upper management, of the corporation in the United States. You could probably get rid of 50% of the government right now just by crimes on the books. Defrauding your expense statement. Guess what? That's a felony if you're in private sector. If you do it and it's $10,000 up there's congressmen who've been proven to be defrauding their expense accounts to like the tune of $75,000, and they're just admonished, made to pay it back, and they're still in their seats. What the heck, folks? That's what we're talking about. They're not even holding their own people to the laws they impose upon us. That's not our republic. That's an oligarchy. That's a monarchy. That's a government run by titles of nobility who have set themselves above the people and are administrating royal edicts that they are exempt from, such as we can steal your babies and dismiss a habeas corpus under the Rucker-Feldman Doctrine and grant immunity to anybody who kidnapped your baby. Not only that, we're not going to give them back. We're just going to keep them too. We're going to just keep kidnapping them too. That's when you know you're corrupt. So you have courts that have admitted to the Sixth Circuit that if the state kidnaps your baby, they're going to keep your baby, they can keep your baby, and they get immunity. And now we have babies that came over the border that are undocumented suddenly in New York. What do you think's going on with all these attorneys? Who do you think's creating these abilities? You have to have an instrument of law to pass a border, folks, even as a child on the truck or a plane, on a bus. Who's creating the instruments that allow these children to be trafficked? That's where your corruption lies, in the states. Wow. Suddenly, the conspiracy about the corruptions of the probate in the counties and the states traffic American babies, oh my gosh, there's a little Mexican baby floating around. It's polluting the color of that system. Please, folks, are you that blind? Are you that racist that you only saw it when the Mexican babies came over the border and started this happening to me? So now not only can we say, hey, you Democrats, you just proved what we've been saying you've been all along, which is baby traffickers. And now we can say, oh, yeah, you're the racist because you didn't care when it was a bunch of white Americans, did you? We had to say Mexican babies. I was made to say a Mexican baby just other than just a baby. To me, they're all little babies. They're just little ones.
Well,
I'm not supposed to say purple little ones, yellow little ones. I'm not supposed to put a color or a nationality when I talk about the rights of a child in this world by the law. That's repugnant. That's repugnant. And so if people can't talk, understanding that when you have to put a nationality in front of a baby to talk about them having rights or not, you need to really reevaluate where your heart is and where your mind and spirit is, because that's just disgusting to me. Morally, I'm disgusted by that concept. And I hate even having to say the word Mexican baby or Iranian baby. That's gross, folks. Ugh. Yeah. Just be gone. I'm sorry, I'm preaching. I know it actually is the Sabbath.
And we need to, these things need to be spoken, because, we need to suspend the politicking and look at this, look at this, like, bigger picture, like,
Well, first off, these children coming over the border, if they're being issued Social Security numbers, there needs to be a review of that. They need to find out how these children are being documented. There's a major negotiable instrument fraud happening there, as far as I promise you that. So, and these are federal instruments. These are children that are should be receiving some type of federal funding through the states in some way, shape, or form. They have to be, the states, I guarantee you, are not taking a hit on this. Okay, they're not screaming, "Oh, we're losing so much money with all these migrant children." You haven't heard that, right? Mm-hmm. It's been happening a long time, folks. The states haven't said, "Hey, we're not." No, they're happy to make the money on those babies, aren't they, Amelia? Oh.
Yep, that's their apple cart, and that's
100 million a year, folks. In Ohio, in like 2013, I want to say 2013, it's like $256 million they made on Title IV. $256 million on Title IV for 1 year in the state, folks. Oh my gosh, that's more money in Title IV than some nations of the world run on. I mean, I don't think people really understand that the magnitude of the crimes against humanity that these people are affecting. Mostly because they're just stealing babies against the statutes. They're like hiding, literally, baby trafficking under the statutes. The statutes are not the problem. They're not being followed. These people are just criminals. They're criminal syndicates violating state, federal law, and it's disgusting.
Playing on your emotions to politic and legislate these crimes into our justice system.
Well, I mean, I understand the politics too, because the liberals have really volatized their base. These people are fanatical. Some of these people cry. I mean, some of these liberals have really lost their way. Their mentality is askew because their state is in chaos. It's like they have no other state of mind but the state of their state of being with Hillary as president. Like their constructs of self is tied to the politics and the propaganda that surrounds them. They're really very confused spiritually. So if we suddenly threw Hillary as a major player in an international baby trafficking cabal that's been functioning for at least 50 to 100 years, 50 years codified, right? But before that, they were there too. And way back to Babylon even. And that she is central in that. If you threw her under federal indictment and put her in chains and hung her, like we know we can, on a truth scale, which is what's been put in the press for treason, if you did that, all these liberals would freak out. So you had to bring that liberal freak out of.
And that's all they want to know how everything falls into, what political box do you fall into? I don't subscribe to any political box. I don't like boxes, period, okay? I'm for the children.
A friend of mine says that when they first started talking all this crazy stuff, when he was just doing it, and he was not anywhere close to where my research has taken me, but he said that when the feds would talk to them, they would used to arrest them to talk to them. He's like, "Hey man, if you just want me to come teach you, just come ask me." But no, they have to do it under the ruse of, "We're going to talk to you," and you would come down. So like these falsely arrest people who had any knowledge of the law, right? Way back in the Freeman movement, and they said, "Here's the thing about you guys." They're like, you guys are, there's a box, and it's not like you're not in the box. You don't even know where the box is. Like, we're over here and we're in this box, and you're like, you don't have a box. One doesn't exist for you. You think so far outside the box. And it's hard for people because they're so monocular. Okay, so the world up until the internet, and I really think that this is just another exponential, growth period when it comes to that we're all intellectually connected. that we have a global consciousness, that the internet has allowed us to look at patterns of consciousness in a variety of ways, in the way we relate to ourselves, our cultures. We're sharing our cultures, our friendships. We have friends all over the world now through the internet, not just through Facebook. We've had friends all over the world before Facebook. We all know that. But we were just able, to interconnect all over the world in these different cultures. And then suddenly we start seeing this uniformity of government that suddenly is oppressive. And we have this great banking structure that's been keeping track of all this activity that all these oppressive criminal instruments have been doing. So we've started to find out through banking that by the law, a lot of nations are just criminal enterprises. And if they by the design art, there are people within the government that have made it a criminal enterprise, that are actually using the government as state to oppress their people. And guess what? Including in ours. And ours is the most obscure of all, because the bankruptcy that brought about the Federal Reserve, that has allowed all these countries to buy oil with our money, where we are the surety, where we're trading a real material product, oil, for basically the suretized value of your child's flesh. Okay, get this. Oil in gallons is paid for by the value of your child's flesh. Suretized. That's what the Federal Reserve Note is. So they're using, all these 197 nations have been using an instrument of trade where they give, they are giving a part of our children to Saudi Arabia. And you want to know about the Babylonian slave trade, right? So Saudi Arabia, I guess they all thought they were buying into us, but see, it was really feeding the debt back into the mouth of Moloch for the Babylons. See, that's the whole point. We just, our instrument of law has engaged the Babylonian slave trade. We've infiltrated every aspect of it and fed it back into it. We've made the serpent eat its own tail. That's by the banking laws. Now we can go, yeah, that's what we thought you were doing. We couldn't prove it before, and yeah, we got you now. They're commoditizing.
With this data leak, this Facebook data leak, that it's proven to show that they're targeting the poor and single mothers, and they're using Facebook data leak to target the people.
They target belligerents. They're using stealing babies. It's pure fascism. It's just like Nazi Germany. They literally are targeting. Obama targeted his administration and Hillary and them targeted political dissidents with the machines of probate and the judicial system and the FBI and the criminal justice system to target their adversaries, people who oppose them. They were using the government in a coercive force to oppress dissenters, even murdering them. You're going to find out, like, Hillary Clinton is going to go down as, like, worse than Mussolini and stuff, folks. I mean, these people are going to be like Hitler and higher. They just because they're not wearing little brown shirts. And you cops out there, you cops who think because you have a uniform on and a badge on, you can beat people into pulp, you can shoot them in the back and such. Yeah, you're just brown shirts. You're going to go for crimes against humanity. I promise you, you will. It's just we're not going to just take like 4 or 5 of the little lowly captains this time in the Nazi war crimes. We're not leaving it to the Admiralty bar anymore. Last time they brought them all to Admiralty. No. They're coming to common law this time. They all get hung. They get hung, folks. Complicity in child trafficking is a hangable offense in our country. Hang them high and long. Hang them. And if they don't want that, then we'll go the old Babylonian way and we'll throw them all off the big old, what's the deplorables? They want to name, an aircraft carrier, the deplorables. I think the first Republic commissioned, reconstituted warcraft should be named the deplorables. And you know what I think its first setting out to sea should be? Put everybody who was complicit as an agent of state in child trafficking and catch them all to a big old millstone and kick it right off the edge of it and watch them all get dragged right into the sea where they belong. That's what I'd vote for, because that's what the law tells us to do. Because those people are horrible people and need to have their spirits delivered back to the mother.
Yeah.
And that's biblical. Because she keeps the innocent and she obliterates the evil. Evil can't survive in the mother. That's why the mother of the sons of men hid in her
It's not just that. I mean, the corruption, we the people can't sustain this level of corruption. We just can't.
No, do we know it's there? Oh my gosh. It's going to be like quick and dirty. Now, they just didn't know the law. No one brought the law. They've been listening to people who are charlatans. Okay, you know what I saw today? I saw a picture of an instrument, a JPEG of an instrument, where a young woman didn't sign her birth certificate, so the CPS worker signed the birth certificate for her child. With her own name, not the mother's name. Okay, and they said, well, why do you think I'm a CPS worker? I'm going to tell you something. Whatever CPS workers think they have the right to sign a birth certificate, that is one cuckoo lady that doesn't know anything about the law, and she needs to be put away for a long time. Because she can no more sign that birth certificate than she can sign that woman's checking account. She has no authority to sign for that woman. She didn't have anything to do with that baby. She didn't bring anything to that instrument of trust. And the woman who did that needs to be in a federal penitentiary for a very long time. And so should her masters who told her she could do it. See, that's what the problem is here, folks. That's the problem with reprobate states that have no heart. Like Moloch. This woman is told, oh, you can sign that birth certificate. Really? By what right does she have the right to sign an instrument saying that mother delivered that? You got to understand the negotiable instrument violation here, folks. And then again today, I was called by a woman who had a teenager, a late age teenager, and the state was saying that they were going to keep this child under CPS custody as a ward till she was 21. I'm like, they can't do that.
That's what they tried to tell me. They tried to, in front of everybody, my friends and everybody in the waiting room at the courthouse. My attorney said that if I don't drop my appeals case, they're going to keep my son in state custody until he's 21.
And how are they going to do that with 9/10?
In front of everybody. Like everybody that was with me, my family, my friends.
Understand. Right, and so let's understand the Solomon.
Isn't that illegal?
Well, okay, this is a King Solomon's argument. Okay, there's a King Solomon's argument. You're the mother, and you're saying he's my son, he shall stay with me. And a state of amorphous people called the state of whatever, but a state of men, say, well, our laws say he's going to be our custody till he's 21. And they go and with force and guns, called police, steal him from you, kidnap from you.
It doesn't, Lotus, let's be real. It doesn't take 3 years to determine if somebody is a fit parent.
Well, it does when they're waiting to see if they break you by the crimes and trespasses and torts they put upon you. Yes. Or, again, if you suspended all discovery and they've decided, we're just going to see if we can crack her by stressing her out. So they've already disenfranchised the ones that are in the second cycle because
they send their gang stalking agents, social workers to target you and police officers.
Put someone like me in prison for a year, and I go, man, was that the dumbest thing you ever did? Because I saw your little leper colony, and I know exactly who you are. I already had an idea who they were, but now I really know who you are. I know exactly how you do it. Not only do I know how they do it with adults, I know how they do it with kids now, because what I learned when I went to prison and how babies disappear out of prisons, folks, you haven't even begun to talk about the baby trafficking in this country. The prisons, women's prisons, are merely broodmare farms, folks. They are taking pregnant women and tricking them out till they get pregnant in the streets, not rehabilitating them, not ensuring rehabilitation, not providing them everything they should have, when besides the fact most of those, as we said, are foster kids. And then they're tricking them into prison pregnant, and then they're taking the babies from them when they're pregnant in the prisons and paying them for it, sometimes not paying them for it, just seizing them.
Holding cells, they address you, they have other women there saying, well, when you get out, how are you going to pay off your legal bills, you know? My friend, he's a pimp, he can help you out.
Again, is state issuing birth certificates. There's no supervisory authority for a federal treasury instrument being oppressed upon the states. The states are defrauding treasury instruments with no federal supervision whatsoever, except through certain title programs through Social Security. They're supervised in Medicaid and Medicare. They merely need to be supervised through Social Security, through Title IV federally as well. That even would take care of all the immigrant status children. Because Because those children, if they're going to create amnesty claims, they're supposed to be issued at least certificates of citizenship or something, because you're just presuming they want to be an American. Those children should be given dual citizenship. They should have the right to, if you're going to seize them, they should have the right to preserve whether they want to live in Mexico or the United States, but up to the point when they're 18. I had a friend that was an American citizen, born on a military base, okay? So she actually had a dual citizenship, South Africa and the United States. She had to declare one by the time she was 18. Now, some countries allow you to have dual citizens like that. The only state that I know in this country, which, by the way, you're not supposed to be allowed to be a citizen of Israel and a citizen of the United States, not by the Republic. Citizenship is an emolument, folks. Citizenship is an emolument by the law. Being a citizen of two different countries, that's an emolument, taking the oath to another nation. So that's not allowed in this country. So I don't know why my friend who was born in two nations, like literally was an American citizen born on a military post in another nation, had to declare one. But I could run for Congress and suddenly declare a country. How does that work, folks? Again, clear evidence against the government and the statutes being allowed to be perpetrated within the instruments of state, not making themselves be subject to the very laws that they are oppressing upon the people in the states by military force, by armed police with riot gear and AK-47s and Uzis and tanks. And I mean, come on, folks. That's why I tried to get the militias to get reorganized. Well, Trump's going to probably have to do a proper call if it happens, because these organized militias aren't doing anything to get it together. Not that I can see. I'll check to see if they're starting.
I don't know what time it has to be. You know what time? What time it has to be for them to get organized?
Right. Yeah. The whole point is the law is thus. Anybody who's an agent of state.
I can't think of anything more worthy than our children. They're our most precious resource, and I can't imagine that any parent would be tolerant with living in a world where we have a global government that is human trafficking our children.
Right. Especially when they're running around the world saying we're being mighty and righteous, invading all these tribal countries who do all these things. It's like, well, who are you holier than thou? I mean, that actually is the discovery doctrine. That's a papal bull from the Roman Empire, wannabe vicar of our Jubilee Trust, that are advocate in Christ.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about the Catholic priest post, and yeah. I'm glad that we talked about this. I got to wrap it up though soon. We've been.
I agree. I got to eat some lunch, and we have a festival here this weekend. But I mean, it's getting ready to come around. I mean, everyone should realize. Everyone ask themselves, and they should demand two things. Make sure, if you're listening to this, spread it around. The FBI is apparently taking seriously reports of children being kidnapped through CPS. Everyone whose child is being kidnapped through CPS needs to make an official report to the FBI. And I'm serious. Go down there, put it in writing, make them listen. Don't even just do it over the phone. Go down there, do it in writing, send it to them now. The law's been clear. If they are taking kids against statutes, that is a felony. That is a treasury crime. That is the point. And so the FBI is starting to take these cases seriously. If anything, make sure that your child is put in there. And I would love to get a registry of this. I think that they should have to keep a registry of all these reports. I think people are going to be just godsmacked 10 times over when we find the number of children that have been trafficked and have been stolen through CPS. I don't think people are going to be prepared for the Holocaust, the hidden Holocaust that we've been enduring for these last 20, 30 years, that no one has heard, because the poor, so far the Democrats only care if you're Hispanic, but they don't care about the white impoverished in this country. Well, it's like this, they haven't said anything about the impoverished white class of this country rising from 20%, what is it, like 10 to 40% now? I mean, it's like, there's like a third of the United States is impoverished, I think.
Well,
I mean,
I'm gonna keep speaking out to this, and I'm gonna keep encouraging everyone to support our initiative, which is human2020.com. That is to give those that are not enslaved an opportunity to play an active role in ending human trafficking by 2020. And God bless you, Lotus. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. You're awesome.
Yep, you have a blessed afternoon last week, and I'll keep you posted. But yeah, everybody demand to know how that could happen. And those are states doing that, folks. Those are people in the states doing that. That's not the feds. If there are feds involved, they're really breaking the law. So, God bless you all. Be blessed in your path.
All right. Okay, everyone. That's been another episode of Porthole to Justice Off the Cuff with Miss Lotus Justice. It's Lunch with Lotus every Saturday. You can tune in and subscribe to the show for free on Spreaker.com. And it's really easy. It just takes your email and your name, and you can subscribe to my show, The Zeph Report, Faith Mix, and Kuneda's Ramble. All of the reporters in Social Media News Network on Facebook exclusively. All right. Have a great day. God bless.